Star Wars The Acolyte has premiered on Disney+, but will this new show drive you to the Acolyte or the Dark side of the Force? I'll let you know right now. This video is brought to you by Chubbies. Your summer wardrobe awaits. Get 20% off your order at chubbiesshorts.com/Dan and stay tuned after the video for more info. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my review of the first 2 episodes of Star Wars The Acolyte, which debuted last night on Disney+. Some critics were sent the first 4 episodes for review, but I'm not in the Cool Kids Club on this one, so I'm just going to review the 2 that are available right now. This latest show comes from creator Leslie Headland, whose Russian Doll was a buzzy streaming hit. Headland also directed the first 2 episodes that we saw last night and wrote the first episode. The Acolyte is set 100 years before the rise of the Empire. Amandla Stenberg plays a mysterious assassin who's pursued by the Jedi Order after the murder of a Jedi Knight. But there's more to this assassin than meets the eye as the Jedi realize that she may be part of a larger plan that represents a growing darkness in the galaxy. Lee Jung-jae, famous for Squid Game, plays Sol, the Jedi Master leading the investigation, while his Padawan Jeki Lon is played by Daphne Keane. Charlie Bennett plays another aspiring Jedi Knight with a lot to prove named Yord Fandar, and Carrie-Anne Moss plays Indara, a Jedi Knight stationed on a planet far, far away. That's a very vague description because there are a couple twists and turns in the show that weren't very well publicized, so I'm going to split this review into a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. I'll do spoilers in a few minutes, and I actually didn't know anything about The Acolyte before I watched it. I avoided all the trailers, which is easy to do because they're not running trailers for streaming shows in theaters before movies yet. All I knew was that it had been proclaimed the disaster of the week when the first trailers came out, which, really shouldn't be surprising for anything from Disney or Star Wars at this point. I was intrigued by the idea of a show set 100 years before the Empire, when the Jedi were in their prime as the galaxy's mystical police force, and The Acolyte's first 2 episodes dive into this idea a bit. But it's more of a galactic procedural so far, sort of a whodunit as they pursue the suspect from planet to planet, complete with a scene that is either very inspired by or a complete ripoff of The Fugitive. I'm not really against the idea of a Jedi cop show, for lack of a better word, really, but I think the larger question might be, is this really the best thing for Star Wars? I was actually reminded through these first 2 episodes a lot of another show that I was very in the middle on, which was The Rings of Power over on Amazon. Like that show, I thought that the first episode was a little rough, and I thought that the second episode was better, but that overall, so far, the show feels a little small for the vast galactic universe that it's set in. I think Star Wars in a lot of ways really works best when it's done at a larger scale, which is something that we saw with Andor, where you could do a show on a very big scale, but you could still tell very small, very personal stories. This didn't really feel so much like that. It felt more like the kind of show that the characters in Star Wars might watch on space TV, like they took the character of the Jedi from the real world and made a TV show about it. Now, it's very cliquey and kind of sticks to a certain narrative to declare this show an absolute disaster, especially given the creator and the makeup of the cast, but I don't think that The Acolyte is disastrous through these first 2 episodes. It's just kind of there. Maybe it's a victim of long-form storytelling because we're in essentially Act 1 of this show, and so it perhaps takes a while to get going. But at the same time, when you're making a TV show, part of it is cracking that format, and not every TV show gets off to a slow start. The second episode teases a few interesting characters, including one that has the potential, I think, to be an all-time fan favorite, and there is a mystery at the heart of the show that we're only just now beginning to explore. There are 6 episodes left to go, and there's time to gain momentum. And when we're talking about Star Wars TV shows, Andor, I think, started out good, but ended up being great in the last run. However, on the other hand, The Book of Boba Fett was a show that I actually didn't really mind the first couple episodes, and then I think that things completely went off the tracks from there. So it's hard to guess, basing on what we've seen from Star Wars on Disney+, exactly which way the show's going to go. I think the main takeaway so far is that The Acolyte doesn't really come running out of the gate. It stumbles and lurches, especially under the weight some pretty uninspired dialogue and occasionally wooden acting. Now, a lot of Star Wars fans will say, well, that's just Star Wars, uninspired dialogue and wooden acting. It's been there since the beginning. But I don't necessarily think that you have to lean into the worst aspects of a series and say, well, what else would you expect? The best parts of Star Wars don't include those things. So the presence of them in other Star Wars projects, I don't think should be used as an excuse for them to be present in this show. We're 4.5 years into the Disney Plus era with Star Wars, and when we look at the 6 live-action series that we've got so far, I think that we've really gotten 2 solid seasons from those 6 different series. Season 1 of The Mandalorian, and then all of the first season of Andor, with the caveat that I didn't finish Ahsoka because I felt very lost in the Clone Wars lore of it all. A lot of the other stuff that we've seen have been some very high highs mixed with some lows, like Season 2 and particularly Season 3 of The Mandalorian and really the entirety of Obi-Wan Kenobi, or I think total misses altogether, like the Book of Boba Fett. At a reported $180 million budget, there's also the question, as there was with Rings of Power, as to whether fine or even pretty good are justifiable results for an investment like this. The ideal case for a show like this, especially one based on a big IP like Star Wars, is to get something that from the first episode really sucks in both fans and non-fans alike. This show didn't get that for me. After the first 2 episodes, it really kind of got a, and that's the best that I can say. I think the big takeaway for me so far is that while I didn't hate or even dislike The Acolyte for the first 2 episodes, it still has a lot of work to do. So on my rating scale through 2 episodes, the best I can do for The Acolyte is give it an it's fine, with the hope that it could upgrade that rating as the show goes on. And I hope that it does. I don't really root for any show to fail, and I think that it's in everyone's best interest to have more good Star Wars out there. I just don't think that we're quite there yet. So those are my non-spoiler thoughts on the show, and they are a little light because there is so much about the plot that wasn't revealed and that I don't want to reveal if you haven't seen anything. So let's transition now to a few thoughts in the spoiler realm. So if you haven't seen The Acolyte, if you don't know anything about the show, then those are all of my non-spoiler thoughts, and I'm going to transition into my spoiler section in about 3 seconds. So this is your last chance to tune out. As I said, I didn't know anything about The Acolyte going in. I didn't watch any of the trailers. I didn't really read anything about it. But it took me about 10 minutes to clock that we were dealing with either twins or some sort of a split personality. Maybe it was the fact that they did 3 different scenes of Osha waking up from some kind of a dream panting. There was obviously something that was going on. And I don't really feel like the show made that much of an effort to hide what was happening. I don't know why they didn't lean into that side of the story, because I think it could have helped them sell the show. It's an interesting hook, and I thought that it was so heavily telegraphed that they really shouldn't have even bothered trying to pretend like it was some big plot reveal. Also, and this is a very pet peeve nitpick, this is my honest trailer brain kicking in, but you had that scene where she's looking at the fire and begins to think about her past, and obviously this fire is a big part of her past. But I think that you could have had a better setting for that than her standing in the vacuum of outer space where fire cannot actually exist. Now, I'm sure that there are a lot of amateur ship technicians out there that are going to tell me why a fire could exist in outer space in that scenario, but I think that it was still an odd choice because you're just inviting the kind of scrutiny that I'm giving. Is it something going to be like, it ruined the show for me, I can't believe they did that? No, I'm not going to say that. But when you're a writer and you can write literally anything, I think that they maybe could have sidestepped that question, because it was odd to see someone standing in space looking at these roaring flames. Now, one thing I think that The Acolyte has done is already broken a very young Star Wars record, I think in the very first episode, where Yord's caught changing clothes scene has automatically surpassed Kylo Ren's FaceTime with Rey for most unnecessary shirtless scene for a male Star Wars character, so congratulations on that. We also have Carrie-Anne Moss as a Jedi, and listen, I'm on board from second one if you're going to do that. I think that that's really good casting. I'm sure that we're going to see more of her through flashbacks and stuff, because it seems like flashback is going to be a big part of the show as we unravel the mystery about what happened with these Jedi Knights that are being hunted. But I don't think that it was the best idea to cast Carrie-Anne Moss as a Jedi and then immediately introduce Matrix-style fighting into the Star Wars franchise. The director has said that she is a big fan of Carrie-Anne Moss and Trinity, and she wanted to basically make her Trinity in the Star Wars universe. And, that's kind of cool, but it was jarring for me. Some people may like it. They say, I love the introduction of this kind of action into the franchise. This is very, person to person. But it really took me out of the show because immediately I was like, oh, wow, Trinity's in Star Wars. I get the intention and I get the fact that, you have the ability to sort of fulfill this dream, but I didn't think that it meshed very well. It just didn't feel very natural to Star Wars, but that's just one guy's opinion. I do have to say I was also somewhat distracted by the weird age-up makeup on Dean Charles Chapman, who played Tommen on Game of Thrones as Master Torben. He looked like he was in disguise. I get it. You cast a younger actor, you're going to do flashbacks, but yeah, I was just like, what's going on with this guy? I am intrigued by who our big bad is. He's got kind of a Kylo Ren vibe going on so far. If they can pull off a really good villain, that'll go a long way. And then a Wookiee Jedi Master? I mean, come on. If Kelnaka is as big a badass as he has the potential to be, then I think that's really going to be a big boost to the show going forward. Really, though, characters aside, I think what it comes down to here is the mystery. What is it that happened? What is it that these 4 Jedi did that set May on this path of murder and revenge and a turn to the dark side? If that mystery can be made compelling, then I think that the show is going to be a lot more compelling than it currently is. But if the heart of the show is a disappointment, then I think that that could be a critical wound. Now, 2 of the season's episodes were directed by Kogonada, who's a really interesting filmmaker. So I do actually have some hope going forward, but I worry that a lot of people might bail after these first couple episodes. And also it doesn't really push back against the narrative that's been laid at its feet. And shows and movies now have to be very good to sort of overcome that narrative that's not really based on the quality of the show going in. It's not fair that the standard is so high, and yet you have to know if you're producing the shows that you're going to have to clear that standard anyway. Consistency for Star Wars, really, and Disney Plus is key here. This was reportedly greenlit back in 2020, and it feels like a show, honestly, from that era, which is sort of grist for the content mill with the hope that it's going to pay off. I'm choosing to keep my fingers crossed that we haven't seen the full potential of Leslie Headland's vision. If it turns out that we have, then I think that Disney and Star Wars might have delivered yet another disappointment. And I think it's doubly worse because it would have failed what I think is a very talented, largely non-white cast. And when you do things like that, I think it makes it harder to get shows and movies with that kind of cast greenlit. And it's not really their fault. I think creatively, casts like this have been failed by the writers and directors behind many of the shows and a lot of the executives as well. And I think it creates an excuse for some executives to say, well, it's because people don't want to watch a show starring a woman or, that's not about this certain set of characters that are already established. I don't necessarily think that's the issue with the show, but that doesn't really change the reality of it all. So yeah, The Acolyte, I wish I had more positive feelings, but it really is sort of a wait and see thing for me. What did you think though? Are you excited about the show going forward? Let me know down in the comments below. And before we go, I want to thank the sponsor for this video, Chubbies. This video is brought to you by Chubbies. It's summer, and whether you're hitting the beach, the pool, or just the grocery store, you want to look your summer best. Well, Chubbies has you covered with an awesome selection of shorts, shirts, and swimwear that'll be turning heads no matter where you go. I'm already loving Chubbies' Friday shirt, which is super airy and comfortable, especially here in Arkansas's hot, sticky weather. I'm also planning to try out my new swimsuit on the beach in a few weeks, and you know what? It looks so great, I may have to find a pool to jump in before then. Chubbies shorts offer a variety of inseams, so you can decide how much thigh is right for you, and their shirts come in a variety of styles, including resort wear, polos, sun shirts, tank tops, and button-ups. Plus, Chubbies swim trunks also offer a choice of inseam, vibrant colors, big pockets, and fun patterns for maximum beach-ready style. Whether you're getting dressed for your workday, a workout, or a weekend getaway, Chubbies has you covered. For a limited time, Chubbies is giving fans of the show 20% off your order with our code DAN at chubbiesshorts.com/Dan. That's code DAN, D-A-N, at chubbiesshorts.com/Dan. Support the show and tell them we sent you. Don't blend in with the crowd. Stand out with Chubbies. Thanks to Chubbies for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching. Also, be sure to check the description below for a link on how you can buy tickets to see me and Christian Harloff live in New York City in just over a couple weeks, Friday, June 21st. Thanks as always for taking the time to watch the channel. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.